As we continue in our series on reflections on memorization, Psalm 34 verse 4 says, "I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears." The greatest fear in the world is the fear of public speaking. The second greatest fear in the world is actually the fear of failure. And fear is something that drives human behavior. It drives governments, it drives organizations. Mothers Against Drunk Driving was an organization created for the fear that other mothers would suffer the tragedies of losing a child in an accident caused by drinking and driving. Fear is what leads us to teach students certain things about their bodies so that they can be protected against disease. Fear is what inspires us, even within the church, to move in evangelism through the idea of having a loved one die without faith in Christ, unable to receive the everlasting reward that Jesus is going to bring. And David says his response to his fears were not to be paralyzed. You know, it's interesting that in 2001 on 9/11, there was a candlelight vigil conducted on the campus of the University of Michigan. Thousands of people showed up to that candlelight vigil. Now, I want you to think for a moment that on September 10th, 2001, if you invited all those people door to door via social media and said, "Come to a candlelight vigil, we're all going to gather together and light candles for people who have died today or died somewhere around the world," you probably would not have gotten a handful of people there. But because the impact of those planes on the Twin Towers had caused so much fear and panic and uncertainty in life, it led so many people to move and be willing to do something they wouldn't normally do. And for David, that thing was prayer. Sometimes fear is a blessing because it inspires us to pray. Rather than being paralyzed, rather than being frozen, David said he sought the Lord. And he knew that God heard him because he was delivered from those fears. Have you ever felt what it's like to be delivered from a fear? Something that terrifies you, something that paralyzes you, something that seems to hold you back from being all that you can, from doing all that you can, or from seeking all that you desire. That was the experience of David. And he says he sought the Lord and he heard him and delivered him from all his fears. There was not one fear that God could not deliver David from, and there is not one fear that God cannot deliver you from. My encouragement to you is to take a list of all your fears and to bring them to God, to seek to be delivered from them.